Good evening, everyone. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement tonight. We want to start by acknowledging the sovereignty of the Coast Salish people and that we are gathering on their unceded ancestral land. We honor with gratitude the Coast Salish tribe's stewardship, sacred beliefs, and connection to these lands and sea since time immemorial. Recognizing both past and present harms, let us pause for a moment of silence to reflect on opportunities for healing and justice. Next, I want to express our gratitude for the delicious and amazing food tonight. Woohoo! How special it is to have a meal all with Lopez ingredients and talented chefs preparing our food, including a new caterer, Tony and Alyssa, with the salty otter. And also thanks to Barn Owl and Dennis for the salmon cooking. As I share about LFRC tonight, I want everyone to know that I'm really the voice representing the incredibly hard working and dedicated staff and board, both past and present. I want them to know how important they are to me personally and how much I appreciate all of them and the amazing work that they do and the love that they share. Also, everyone here tonight means a great deal to all of us. It fills us with so much joy that we are all here gathered together. This time last year, there was a lot of uncertainty whether this night would happen because of COVID, and it rained all morning long. But like all things Lopez, grit, compassion, and creativity hold us together through these rough moments. Please take a moment to look around you. As you do, you'll see all the people that give so much to others on this island. They make the Resource Center possible and help Lopez thrive. I have the distinct honor of being able to thank each of you in person tonight for your donations, your incredible volunteer efforts, helping family, neighbors, friends, and the many, many things that everyone here does to keep our community healthy and strong. The last 2 years have been such a constant challenge, often exhausting. Nothing could have ever prepared us for what has unfolded. The world still faces COVID, racial injustice, mass shootings, the rise of totalitarian regimes, and attacks on our civil liberties. At times, it seems like one thing after another knocks us down and leaves us worrying about what is coming next. In these moments, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed and hopeless. What keeps me and everyone at LFRC going is the belief that behind each dark cloud is the ray of light that shines us towards a new path. And we're seeing that happening a lot this year. Some of those shining lights have been the special moments with our new leaders that are creating these incredible spaces for conversation and movements on Lopez. And it's amazing to watch this emerge with such bravery, grace, and fortitude. This has allowed us to move beyond the familiar safety of being allies, someone who can cheer from afar, towards becoming what Dr. Bettina Love calls co-conspirator, someone who puts ourselves into the equation by taking action. LFRC believes that sharing power and empowering the next generation of diverse leaders is the key that will unlock the door to our collective better future. Being a co-conspirator begins with listening, understanding, and learning from the talented, diverse leaders on Lopez. So much has been accomplished this past year with Voices and Visions, which includes our Latinx, tribal members, people of color, LGBTQIA, and disability rights leaders. Also Align, advocates for Lopez Island Gathering for Neurodiversity, and our incredibly talented La Cima bilingual youth leaders. There are other exciting advisory opportunities forming with the New Youth Advisory Group, the Recovery Cafe, and deepening our partnerships with Indigenous youth and their families. Inclusion in action means that organizations like LFRC coordinate government and private partnerships to work with our community, support their ideas, and help them create a more equitable future, not doing things for them. It's why our services are given the highest ratings for evidence-based practices by state and federal funders. These talented leaders are making space for us to get to know each other while working side by side. These trusting relationships are the foundation that will shape our future with deeper connections, mutual understanding, and a more inclusive community. Probably one of the most powerful things is seeing the pride and joy in all these leaders as they have such incredible accomplishments. It just feels good to see that their leadership growing and flourishing. Lopez, we appreciate the risk that you, our donors, volunteers, and supporters take on this journey with us, helping us innovate and exploring new ways to work together. It's so important to have this teamwork that we have. Lopez is truly a magical place where we can have an impact and do. Together, we are making lasting change happen. You have my deepest heartfelt gratitude for all that you give of yourselves. I see so much of that day after day that makes all of this possible. Thank you so very, very much.
Good evening. My name is Lexi Taylor, and I am the outgoing chair of the LIFRC board, which I have been privileged to serve for over 10 years. I'm not quite sure how much over 10 years, but I know it's more. I have, thank you. I have watched this organization go from a small group of staff working tirelessly in a tiny, cramped space to more than double the employees working in this fabulous, new, and spacious building. Thank you, Pamela. It has made programs possible that we could never have accomplished before. We have done our best to make sure that our employees receive living wages and benefits, and our budget has more than doubled as we have responded to our community's needs and visions. As a result of the hard work of both Barbara and the staff, we have received grants that never would have been possible without our partnership with our school and our library. These grants support youth learning, enrichment, and leadership programs. Because of your generosity, we have been able to cover basic needs like rent and transportation and utilities. We have a robust mentor program that brings together community members and our students. If you haven't visited our new Lopez Shared Shopping facility, please stop by. It's on Dill Road. And soon you will become familiar with our new program, the Recovery Cafe. But it is through the generosity of this remarkable Lopez community that you have supported our programs that strengthen the lives of over 950 residents and keeps us thriving. You got to know that COVID was an enormous challenge for a lot of people who were really isolated, and that was the wonderful thing that LIFRC attended to. It's been an amazing journey that could not have happened without all of you. Thank you. For those of you who have already donated, we are deeply grateful for your continuing generosity. For those who would like to donate tonight, you will find envelopes on the table, which we will collect before Kip Greenthal introduces Rebecca Brown, our wonderful speaker. And thank you all enormously.
Okay. So we're going to get started with the main part of our program. My name is Kip Greenthal, and I'm a past board member and a devoted friend of the Family Resource Center. And for a number of years, I've been lucky enough to invite a speaker to come to this wonderful annual occasion. And I know most of you are here because you've learned the importance of what the Family Resource Center does in terms of social justice and equity work, learning about celebrating and empowering diversity and social groups on our island, not to mention the incredible food programs. Tonight, I'm so honored to introduce our featured speaker, Rebecca Brown. Rebecca Brown is the essence of being multidimensional. She is an American novelist, essayist, and writer of short stories. She has written fictionalized autobiography, a modern bestiary, a memoir in the guise of a medical dictionary, a libretto for a dance opera, a play, and various kinds of fantasy. Rebecca has a uniquely recognizable voice, writing as she does in a stark style that combines the minimalism of Ernest Hemingway with some of the incantatory rhythms of Gertrude Stein. And I hope a number of you have gotten her book, and if you haven't gotten it already, there will be books available. And for those of you who have gotten signed copies and want to personalize, please come up after Rebecca's talk, and she will personalize them for you. I want to tell you a few things about Rebecca before she comes up. Rebecca was the first writer in residence at Richard Hugo House in Seattle. She co-founded the Jack Straw Writers Program and served as the creative director of literature at Centrum in Port Townsend, Washington, from 2005-2009. Her best-known work is her novel, The Gifts of the Body, which won a Lambda Literary Award in 1994. Rebecca is an emeritus faculty member in the MFA in Creative Writing program at Goddard College in Vermont, and is also a multimedia artist whose work has been displayed in galleries such as the Frye Art Museum in Seattle. As well as being a writer, Rebecca is at heart a teacher. She has taught in academic, community settings, prisons, libraries, and people's homes for more, she corrected me today, 40 years. She has taught short courses and workshops at many colleges and universities, including Brown University, Northwestern University, Wesleyan, and others across the country. In the midst of her busy writing life, she has had residencies at Yaddo, Hawthornden Castle, McDowell, Centrum, and Hedgebrook. I was so lucky I had the wonderful experience of working with Rebecca while she taught a residency through Seattle Arts and Lectures, Writers in the Schools program some years ago when she collaborated with Perry Lorenzo. I don't know how many of you have gone or been able to go to the Seattle Opera, but Perry Lorenzo is an icon and has passed now. And she brought several classes of 8th graders into the dress rehearsal for Turando. And that gives you an idea of her imaginative way of teaching a residency in public schools. I've also had the wonderful experience of taking a writing class at Hugo House from Rebecca, and she was truly my favorite teacher. Putting a unique spin on things, she gave us a number of writing prompts. Then when we all thought we were done, she surprised us all by saying, "Now write a sentence in the middle of your piece, right there in the center, a sentence that will shock all of us." To this day, I look for those surprising sentences in the middle of any short story I read. When I started reading Rebecca's recent book, You Tell the Stories You Need to Believe, I was drawn into the complex yet simple magic of her voice. Rebecca has a way with sentences that create a brevity of expression, yet speak to the vastness of thought. You Tell the Stories You Need to Believe is an essay cycle, or a meditation, as I like to think of it, on the 4 seasons. Spring, summer, fall, and winter each evoke their own unusual trigger of time for Rebecca, about her childhood or reading her favorite authors, such as William Blake or Herman Melville. We learn of her first falling in love with riding a bicycle. She still rides a bicycle. Feeling self-conscious about looking good in a summer bathing suit. Haven't we all gone through that? We learn about how she muses on inventing writing and her view on the love of her life and her mother's death. Poignant and honest. Please welcome Rebecca Brown.
Being here on this amazing, gorgeous evening. My wife, Chris Galloway, and I are, I was going to say we're planning to move to Lopez, but we actually have settled down roots in Stanley's studio. So we will be amongst you from now through eternity. We're never leaving. It's a beautiful community. You're so welcoming. The place is just, it's just such a blessing to be on this earth. And especially now in kind of troubled times for the world, to be among people who, as Barbara talked about, have a sense of hope and light in the future. And what can we do to make the world better, locally and then broader. So thank you all, and thank you for welcoming your new neighbors, Chris and Rebecca. Anyway, so Barbara, thank you. Lexi, thank you. Kip and Stanley, thank you. Megan, thank you. Y'all have just been awesome to welcome us. I've got a number of pieces I want to read here this evening, and what I want to. Sorry, just kind of doing this wrong thing here. I'm very technically astute, as you can probably tell, and so if my wake-up alarm goes off in the middle of this, then that's just a little insight into my private life, my little wake-up music. So I was thinking about what to read here this evening for the Lopez Island Family Resource Center, and I was thinking about this notion of family, and what is a family, and also what is service. And then, of course, to be invited here as a writer to think about what's the relationship between family and community service and the arts. So I've chosen a couple things that or different ways I try to look at community service and the arts and family. So I'm going to read 3 different pieces, and knowing that you all are generous and lively and open and sweet and welcoming, my guess is that you're going to want to applaud every single sentence. However, I'm going to ask you to just hold your applause till the very end of my last piece, because they kind of all go together. So restrain yourself. Family, Lopez Family Resource Center. My own family is perhaps a slightly irregular family in that I'm married to a woman, and we have grandkids, and we have an extended chosen family of friends, in addition to our blood families of siblings and parents in heaven. I was thinking about the family of humanity. In Seattle, one of the things I do with my week is I spend time at a place called the Window of Kindness, which is a portion of a service organization called Facing Homelessness. And you'll hear a little bit about what we do, but I'm thinking about what communities do to help everyone in the community and to kind of make family of the community. So here's an experience about my time at the Window of Kindness. A guy came to the Window of Kindness with a guitar, and I said, kind of joking, "Are you going to play me a song?" And he said, "Yeah." He got a serious look on his face and was quiet for a bit, then started strumming his guitar. And then he started talking in rhythm about mountains and sky, and about darkness, and about love and pain, and about going under the ground. Then he started singing about a love of his life and about Persephone. I stood at the window and listened and watched him sing. His mouth moved slowly and carefully. His fingers picked and slid along the guitar. Sometimes his eyes were closed, and sometimes he looked down at the ground, but also I think he looked at something I didn't know. At the end of the song, I said, "That was amazing." And he asked me if I knew who Persephone was. And we talked about the myth of the girl who every year has to go down into the dark underground for a while, but then every spring comes back up from below the earth. And I thought of Persephone's story of darkness and redemption, and of the man in front of me, the poor man, the homeless man, singing, and I thought of hope. He and I talked some more about his song, and then about other singers and songwriters, and things that we try to find hope in. And then, when we came to a stopping place in our conversation, I said, "So do you want a coffee or a hot chocolate? Something hot to eat?" And he said he did. I get to meet people like this at Facing Homelessness's Window of Kindness, which is maybe a sister or cousin organization to the Lopez Island Family Resource Center. I get to meet people and hear their stories and songs, or joke around with them and talk about all sorts of things while they stop by for coffee or a meal or sandwiches or socks or a tent or a bus pass or references to other social services. Material help is part of what Window of Kindness does, like I assume the LIFRC also does. But it's also mostly about humans seeing one another, listening to one another, and being helped along with one another in our beautiful, troubled, grace-filled human lives. Okay, so that's just something from recent experience, the world we live in Seattle. There's a lot of unhoused and poor people. Y'all talked a second ago in the introduction about what y'all had done during COVID for isolation. And so much of isolation it's a hunger in the soul, if not a hunger in the body. And so the idea of what we do to overcome isolation and that kind of hunger is something we need to do as humans, as part of the human family. So Kip referenced my new book called You Tell the Stories You Need to Believe, and she made a reference to my bike riding. And the piece I've chosen to read from this book tonight is about summer, because here we are in summer. And also because this piece makes references to kinds of, troubled families people might see from the side, and then it makes you might think about like what happens after the trouble further on. But also how children and kids try to find family or create family. Okay, so when I was a kid, the summer was riding bikes. And it was also like the summer was not even really real, or not just a time, but an actual place you could go, where school and homework and parents and not knowing how to look never even happened. Summer was riding bikes. I rode my big brother's from when he was small, a giant clunky Schwinn. Lydia and Kenneth, who came after school got out to spend the summer with their dad down here in Texas with us, had cool bikes with banana seats and handlebars. Their father bought them for them new when he moved here with his new wife. When Kenneth and Lydia were here to visit their dad in Texas, it was a different place. Nobody had to go to school, and nobody acted like they didn't know you. And also in the summer, parents didn't yell as much because we were outside a lot, not inside in their hair. If we were inside, it was at Lydia and Kenneth's. Their dad and his new wife didn't yell at us, but gave us Cokes or ice cream sandwiches and frozen Snicker bars for lunch. We rode around all day everywhere, to the park and the school and the college and church, and then passed to the land outside the edge of town. One day we found a place behind a clump of trees where someone had cut the fence so you could crawl under. We got down on our bellies and crawled, and then somebody brought a wire cutter from their dad's, and we cut the fence up from the top and bent the wires back so we could ride our bikes through. It was dusty and dry, and our legs and shorts and T-shirts got brown and scratched, but nobody really noticed. The dirt got packed beneath where we rode, and sometimes it even looked shiny. There were bushes and branches and nail-filled boards and crushed-up hole-filled cans. One time we found a mattress. The springs were popped through the cover, and ants were crawling in it. The trees were low to the ground with long, loose, stretched-out branches. There were also many dogs. They were scrawny, and some of them were frightening, with yellow teeth or scabs on places their fur was bit. We yelled at them and waved sticks and climbed trees to get away from them. We made a tree fort in one of the trees. The girls had stopped playing with dolls and with statues of horses, but nobody played anymore with G.I. Joes or trucks. Crawford and Lewis and Tammy and Tina, the twins, and Kenneth and Lydia and I worked on our fort, then rode back to Kenneth and Lydia's. We then rode back with nails and ropes and a hammer. Some of the dogs kept being there, and after a while, we petted the dogs and brought them sandwiches. One of the dogs started following me home, but my mother would not allow the dog inside. One of those summers, the song "The Door into Summer" came out on Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited, the fourth album by the Monkees. Any Monkees fans? Any remembering? Okay, fourth album, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited, the fourth album by the Monkees. Before we came back to the States, from where we lived in Spain, there was mostly the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But after we came back to the States, there was TV after school and the Monkees and Paul Revere and the Raiders and everyone telling you about astrology. You were supposed to be able to figure out secret things about yourself and planets, such as who you were compatible with. I knew what my sign was, and I guessed I was kind of like it, but all of the signs, depending on how you thought about them or who was telling you, could kind of apply. I didn't believe in the signs, but I was curious about who would be compatible with me. Could anyone? I tried to ask someone their sign one time, as if it were no big deal, but then I didn't know what to say next. I didn't know how to say anything or to stand in my skin anymore. In the summer, you didn't see certain people from school, only the people you didn't feel ugly around. The summer is sweet until you meet someone or find something you think is maybe love and lose or throw or give away whatever sense you have been starting to imagine. Something has started inside of you, inside your skin, and you want to do things you don't want, but then you do. You want to go off alone or with somebody, not just anybody else. You would love for this person to look at you, but you would be more frightened if they did. Will they? Why won't they look at you? What's wrong with you? Can everybody see? Everyone else knows how to look. You don't. One summer there was a giant storm. They had warned us about it, so we'd gone for candles and food and batteries. We'd meant to get back home before the storm got bad, but it started before they'd thought. I remember not being able to see out the windshield and my mother driving through puddles that came up to the middle of the car door yelling, "No brakes, no brakes," as if anyone could hear. When we got home, the yard was like a pond. The banks of the river had overflowed, and lawn chairs and barbecues and garbage cans were floating. And the dog that had followed me home was soaking and shivering on the porch, and my mother said, yes, it could come inside, but only for the storm. We got in the house and put paper and rugs by the door to keep the water out, and it didn't get that high, but almost. The next day, the streets were muddy and stank, and everything was creepily, weirdly still. No one got that much damage, but we had been warned. But nobody warns about everything. Was that the same summer that Kenneth and Lydia stopped coming down for vacation? Their father moved somewhere else and had some other wife, and then there were no more bikes. Everyone was too cool or embarrassed to ride bikes anymore. We stayed in our rooms then, alone, or with our dog to read or to write in our diary. Neither Tina nor Tammy stayed all the way through high school. One of them married her boyfriend, but the other one, I think, just had her baby by herself. So that's sort of personal essay memoir from You Tell the Stories You Need to Believe, kind of going through the seasons and seasons of life. This last piece is kind of a variation on a fairy tale, and also, I think, a variation on a family longing, I guess. So this piece, this is my previous book is called Not Heaven Somewhere Else, and it's a collection of stories that are kind of variations on fairy tales or children's rhymes, but they're kind of off a step. And so everybody, probably many of you remember the story of Pinocchio, or remember the movie of Pinocchio. And this story is called Geppetto. That's the last piece I'll read. Geppetto. An old man made a wooden doll. He was a kind and nice old man, not creepy or mean. The old man made the wooden doll, and he loved him. He wanted to make the wooden doll real. A real boy, he said, almost shouting. He sounded so happy. He wanted to love that boy. But the boy, the doll, didn't want that. He didn't want to be alive. I don't know why. Sometimes there are reasons, like bad things happen or things aren't right. They're not right from the start, or things go wrong. But other times, there are no reasons. The fairy came through the window. The fairy sang into its painted-on ear, but the doll didn't want to live. The old man, Geppetto, was very sad. The cat Figaro couldn't even help. The old man wanted the boy to live. He told him how great it could all be. He could have friends and run and play and have a puppy. He could have a puppy. He held the doll and he looked into its shiny, pretty eyes as longingly as he could into the shiny depths of them. He said that he loved him and sent him so much love, oh, all of his love. He loved the doll so much, almost as if it was a boy, a real one, a boy, a son. He held the doll close to his heart and told him sweet and loving things. He held it to its breast and sang to it and kissed his head, or rather, the yellow hat on his head. The old man was never inappropriate. That is not the story here. And he told the doll about the world, the beautiful living world, about fields and seasons, like summer and spring, and the sky and the sun, and rabbits and chipmunks and ice cream and apple pie and baseball and puppies. He'd give him a puppy. He told him about the smiling moon and the winking, twinkling stars. But after a long time of that, the doll not wanting to be alive, not wanting to be a boy, the old man couldn't do it anymore. He put the doll back up on the shelf where it could look down over him while he did his work, and he worked. Sometimes the old man found himself talking to the boy in his head, but he didn't stop. Sometimes this was a comfort to Geppetto. The old man got very old, and he began to die. He lay in his bed and wheezed and got very thin. Old women from the village brought him broth and bread and washed him and helped him. They were kind. The cat stayed with the old man too and kept him warm. Geppetto had always been kind to everyone, and everyone loved him as they could, but nobody loved him the way that only one can love. The old woman stayed and waited. They wiped Geppetto's face with a cool, damp cloth, and they petted his hair, and they murmured comforting things. Geppetto made small noises like a child, like a living boy who was being loved. Small noises like an animal when they wiped his face with the cloth, when they pushed back his hair and petted him and whispered that he was fine, he was doing great. Poor boy, poor man, poor dear old Geppetto. The women tenderly spread oil across his dry, cracked lips, and they wiped away stuff from his eyes. They patted his hands, and they held his hands, and they stroked his cheek. They kept the light quiet in the room, like in the dusk or dawn, the time when things are about to change, when there will come new air. Geppetto slept more, and he dreamt more, and he said things asleep and awake to people who were not in the room. The old women couldn't see them, but they saw the old man's eyelids moving under his eyelids, and they heard him saying things they couldn't hear to people they couldn't see, and they were glad for him. Geppetto lay on his pillow happily. His son wiped his face with a cloth. His son, sometimes a young boy in a yellow hat, sometimes a full-grown man, a kind and strong and loving man, sometimes a boy, sometimes a man, but always a boy, a man who loved his father, who held his father's hand and wiped back his hair and petted his hair and touched his cheek and told him he loved him. He loved him forever and always would, and always he was grateful, always living, always glad to be his son. Thank you for listening. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Rebecca, that was amazing on so many levels, all the love and stories and family and weaving everything together. So thank you. And thank you everyone here who does the same thing with every day with what you do here on Lopez. Have a good evening.